Hey, it's Alan, and I just wanted to let you know that you can now listen to the ongoing history of new music early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Before we begin, I want to let you know about a new show from Curious Cast that I think you might really enjoy. It's called Russia Rising. Putin's Russia has been accused of using internet trolls and hackers and even assassins to influence the West. This new investigative podcast hopes to unravel this giant mystery with the help of those who know best. Russian trolls, hackers, Putin supporters, even a former Russian KGB agent. Join Europe Bureau Chief of Global News, Jeff Semple. He goes on a journey to unravel how Russia has gone from tenuous ally to a potential global threat. You can listen to Russia Rising for free at curiouscast.ca or wherever you're enjoying the ongoing history of new music. Do it. Trust me, you'll love it. Once upon a time, not that long ago, and in a land not that far away, musicians, not all of them, but some, could become very rich. Their riches came by selling pieces of plastic to those who enjoyed their music. Those pieces of plastic were very precious because this was the only way musicians could distribute recordings of their art, and their supply and their price was strictly regulated by the lords of the music industry. Eons earlier, the oracles had foretold that this plastic would come down in price, but that never seemed to happen. The overlords enjoyed their immense wealth and were loath to do anything that might jeopardize the power of their kingdoms. Meanwhile, musicians, not all but some, also reaped huge riches as millions and even tens of millions of people handed over their hard-earned money for the privilege of owning certain pieces of plastic. The musicians never made as much as their overlords, but they made plenty just the same. And it was good. In fact, it was very good. There were lavish parties, obscene luxuries, and plenty of indulgences on a scale unimaginable by the good citizens of the regular world. Yeah, it's not like that anymore. New artists know this. But what if you're one of those acts who had a taste of the good life, the old record industry, and then you had to adjust to the new realities? Let's talk to one of those artists, someone who has adjusted to life in the post-CD world, how it was then and what it's like now. Really.
This is the Ongoing History of New Music podcast with Alan Cross.
Hello again, I'm Alan Cross. Before 1965, the goal of any musician was to keep working. That usually meant playing a lot of gigs. And if you sold some records, fine, that was good too. But with the rise of the album, and with high-margin LPs eclipsing that of rock and roll's preferred format, the 45 RPM record, it soon became possible to become very rich from the sales of recordings. Music fans used to stay in line all night to be among the first to buy a certain artist's album. Record stores used to hand out shopping baskets at the door so people could carry all their purchases to the cash. And once upon a time, a mega act could sell 2 million copies of a single album in just 1 week. And that was just in the United States. Then came the digital era, which killed off those glory days forever. Physical album sales are tanking. Digital album sales have plateaued and actually have started to fall. Margins on the sales of music are razor thin, and streaming services are cannibalizing whatever sales are still happening. In many ways, we're going back to the way it was before 1965 and the rise of the album in rock and roll. And for those accustomed to the old ways, getting rich and famous by selling pieces of plastic, it's been tough. Many have been unable to adjust. For example, guys like Tom York and David Byrne rage against the rise of streaming music services. But others look at things and have evolved, and they say, okay, what do I have to do now to keep being a working musician? And one of those guys is Gavin Rossdale of Bush. Now, Bush, of course, was a majorly successful band of the 1990s, selling somewhere around 20 million records worldwide, thanks to songs like this. That's Bush and Machine Head from 16 Stone, an album released on December 6th, 1994. Once it was discovered by the public, it sold 50,000 copies a week for months on end. Today, though, the industry is very, very different. Yet Bush is still a going concern. So this got me thinking, what's it like for a band to transition from the glory days of the music industry to the situation we have now? So I sat down with Gavin Rossdale in New York, and we talked about things.
20 years ago, you and I sat down, and you were in a brand new band, and you had this album called 16 Stone, and I was just thinking about how much life has changed for you as an artist in those last 20 years. It's back then we were selling pieces of plastic. Now it's an awful lot different, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Bush is a band that has bridged this gap from the time that everybody was selling records to the Napster era, to the YouTube era, to whatever it is now. What was it like from your point of view looking at this transition?
Well, I think that this incredible privilege to still be sat here, by the way, nice to see you again, and the fact that we managed to work our way through the vicissitudes of time and how things have worked. But my mindset is always not worrying about the past and trying to, in order to stay upstream, whatever, you got to keep paddling and doing it. So I fully embrace the way that music is now, and I have my Spotify Premium. I find it real easy to get records. Certain pet records I still buy. I still buy from Beatport for the dance stuff because it's harder to find on Spotify. I still buy certain people, bands that I love because I know that every bit helps. And I think there's something beautiful about making a record because you want to make a record. Whereas before it was imbued, it was like weighed down by expectation, by comparative sales, by other acts going on. And now there's something pure and beautiful about the fact that we accept that none of us are going to sell records. Obviously, it's a people look at YouTube views, Pandora plays, whatever it is, all these different services. But in a way, I feel good about the fact that I worked really hard on Man on the Run, this record that we have now, and it's an incredibly magical thing to make something for the sake of making it.
Here's the first single from Bush's 2014 album, Man on the Run. It's called The Only Way Out. That's Bush and The Only Way Out from their 2014 album, Man on the Run, a record made, differently.
So you don't have a conventional record deal anymore?
Correct. Well, so the last record, Sea of Memories, it was what happened. I recorded it a lot when I was still at Interscope with Jimmy Iovine, so that took care of quite a bit of it. And then towards the end of the process, when I knew it was a Bush record, because at first I was just making songs, just making music, just recording. And I've been trying to get Bush together for a while. Before my solo career, I was trying to do that. Didn't want to do a solo record, I just wanted to be in my band. And that didn't work out, so I made the solo record by default. And we left Interscope. I had a conversation with Jimmy, and I wanted to leave before I was tapped on the shoulder in whatever. And So basically, I funded it myself. Outside of, they were very generous with me and gave me the recordings that I'd done. But in terms of then setting it up, in terms of doing stuff, we had a few distribution deals that helped, bits and pieces here and there, paid for gas every now and again. But the actual bulk of it, I invested in myself. I just was I was fortunate enough to come up and through a time, as you mentioned, that we would sell 50,000 copies of a record a week for 2 years straight. So I made a couple of dollars, and I believed in the band and what we were doing. And so I said, I want staging. They say, well, who's going to, So I did it all. So I funded it all. And then I even, And then, then we went on tour, then the record went to #1, did really good, first self-released ever to do that here in America. And I think it did really well in Canada too. Mm-hmm. So then when you go on tour and you do that, you finally, you get paid back for your investment. And the same thing happened this time around. It's on my label, Zuma Rock Records.
That's your personal label?
Yeah, it's my personal label. And then what happened is that one of my managers, I have loads of managers, Irving Azoff, Lenny Beer, and Brian Tomasini, are my 3 triumvirate. And those guys, Lenny went off, I think, with Irving and began talking to Red about distribution. Mm-hmm. And then they heard the record and said they want to do more than distribution and get, and go further into it. So they took it over for me, and it ended up. So I ended up sort of getting taken care of before it came out. So it's just, again, it's like a labor of love. You just do it because I have nothing else that I want to do, nothing else that I can do. And
no portable skills.
No.
Bush, and another one from 16 Stone from 1994. That's Come Down. More from Gavin Rossdale and what it's like to transition from an old-school rock star into a do-it-yourself indie musician when we come back. Today we're looking at a case study. How can a musician who enjoyed multi-platinum glory days in the 1990s adjust to the new realities of the music business today? Our subject is Gavin Rossdale of Bush.
I think for this life that you have to, if you have alternates, if you have escape hatches, escape routes, chances are you're going to use them. So I made sure, like every job, for instance, that I did when I was coming up, every job I did was only menial labor, and it was only in places where I knew that they would never, I could not become indispensable. Maybe if I'd gone to work at a company and been good at advertising, used my lyrics to be an advertise, do copy, write copy, they might have said, hey, you got a future, and they would have made it too attractive to not stay there. So I never worked at a job that paid me more than $50 a day. And I worked like a dog and, treated like a dog and just made music. And so it was a major gamble that luckily paid off, and not one I would advocate to anyone else or my children.
So you've turned into a real entrepreneur. You're doing things, you're running your own business essentially right now with help from a couple of managers, and you've got a distribution deal and that sort of thing, which is kind of full circle because that's what an indie band does.
Yeah, well, remember when I first signed, I signed to a label called Trauma. So that's an independent label in the Valley, and Interscope really were basically my distributors. But then what happened is that obviously when it started to take off, and the guys at Trauma went mental and lost their minds, we just stuck with Interscope. And so I had always had the benefit, the backing and the financial support, emotional support, musical support of the team at Interscope that always helped me greatly over the years.
Bush and Swallowed from 1996's Razorblade Suitcase. It's sold by the millions too. But it's not just how people acquire music that's changed since then, but it's also how people consume it.
I was talking to a 17-year-old a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the future of music and music and the internet and all that. And after a while I said, well, how do you get your music? And she says, I just make rips off YouTube. And that's good enough? She goes, yeah, that's fine. How do you listen to music? Well, earbuds, headphones. But what about speakers like this? Do you listen to big things? And she goes, no. Well, when you're not listening on headphones, what do you listen on? Well, my laptop speakers are good enough. Mm-hmm. I mean, you must hear that and go,
of course.
Kids,
Well, yes and no. Everyone, I live on my laptop. I go in a hotel room regularly, and I used to, when we last met, the first thing you do when you go into a room so you don't feel lonely is switch on the TV. I haven't switched on a TV in a hotel room in, 2-3 years, because everything I have is on my laptop. Everything I need is on my laptop. Now, I happen to be a musician who I don't mind playing. I play my Spotify off of that, or if I've forgotten, or if I hadn't charged my stupid Jawbone or whatever, the little Beats pill. If I don't have it with me, I'll just play the laptop there, because you know what, it's fine. I'm not critiquing it. I miss the bass. I like bass, but okay, it's not there. So it's more of just a cultural thing, and then so wonderful. Like, you know, going back to that, I did a whole load of press in LA, and I played music to a lot of young journalists, and I played in the studio, and they couldn't believe those massive speakers, because they're like, oh my God, you know, you can play music through speakers. But, you know, again, like we were saying earlier, it just is what it is. And, you know, part of the whole premise of Jimmy doing beats with Dre was, some of it was business, which has paid off. Jimmy's quite a good marketing guy. Was because of the lack of quality in the headphones. You know, the earbuds are the worst. I mean, at least headphones. The only thing I got to say about that, there's a bit of a shame to me, which isn't a Luddite comment, is that there's something great, you know, music is very personal, so of course, nothing better than headphones getting lost in music. But it's also a communal thing, right? You come round, I'm going to play you my new record, what am I going to do? And I've been doing it in a hotel room, people come around, I go, here, check it out, and I sit there while they listen to the headphones. And there's something it's great. The speakers, we should tell the youth that speakers have a good social element to them. And when they're out in nightclubs to EDM, this apparently new form of music that's just begun, it's coming through speakers, by the way.
Yeah, and you feel it in your chest. Yeah. That's part of the appeal.
Yeah.
Here's another sample from Bush's 2014 album, Man on the Run. This is how things begin. It's called Just Like My Other Sins. Bush and Just Like My Other Sins from the 2014 album Man on the Run. I had a question about the making of that record.
I know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask it anyway. As an artist, when you're making this music, when you're recording this music, when you're agonizing over this music, how do you feel when you know that a lot of this stuff that you're committing to zeros and ones isn't going to be heard because of the way people are listening?
It's exactly the same as, you know, how are you upset people don't buy music in any way, you know, in any way they did before. It just is how it is, and it's just futile to be overly concerned with it. I'm safe, I'm comfortable in the knowledge that you are going to play it on the speakers, and you're going to go, I love the effort that's put into this, I can hear the guitars. So it's not going to happen, it just doesn't happen as much as it should. But, you know, I've got enough things to lose sleep over rather than imagining that, you know, oh my God, 40% of people are going to be listening on a laptop, 40% of people on earbuds, and 20% people, or 10% on speakers that are okay, and 10% on great speakers. It just is what it is. The main thing, my only job and my only concern is to pour over that record and make it the best that I can, so that if, God forbid, somebody takes the time to listen through the whole thing on speakers with somebody else, they can enjoy it together. You know what I mean? It's that simple. And it's become very Buddhist. It's very, very simple. It just is what it is. And I came up with this phrase the other day, you know, the album, I made the record because I wanted to make the record.
And
quite nice that the things aren't burdened by expectation, by competition, by stats. It just is that, and that's a beautiful thing.
Well, that is extraordinarily zen. Maybe more artists should be taking your approach to this and just let it happen.
Yeah.
Or not, or whatever.
Well, let it happen, but my biggest point I'm making is make sure that the work what I have control over is being in that studio and trying to get it as good as I can, as, you know, the best I can. And that's what I did. And then when I go out and play a show, and I play every show like it's the last show I'm going to get to play, and I'm not going to play again ever, because that's the only way you should go out on a stage. And if you don't go out, if you go out on a stage like that or phone it in, anything like that, to me it's a surefire way of dying. For me, anyone that sees me from Alberta to flipping, Guelph, if I will do the best I can for them. I will do the best I can. I don't care whether it's 400 people or 40,000 people. It's the same energy, same effort, same intention. And I firmly believe that if you don't live your life like that, you have no business expecting people to want to show up.
It sounds like you've completely embraced the post-CD world. Mm-hmm. So it is all about YouTube views. It's all about the numbers of streams on Spotify and Pandora.
Yep.
It's about getting music out there as a calling card and then following it up with live performances.
Because in a way, if you're a live band, luckily for us, that's always been quite a mainstay. Obviously, it was incredible to have that opportunity to make that kind of money, nothing compared to what the labels would make. When you think about it, like if we did okay, after all expenses and management and split between four of us, and we did okay, I can only imagine how nice Jimmy Iovine's jet is. But I think it is very nice anyway, and even nicer now. But that's the way it goes.
He's got a good run lately, I understand.
Got a good run. He's a smart man. But that's how it goes, and that's how the industry was built, upon the sort of massacre of the artists and the profit of the labels.
This program is all about how an artist has to change everything if they hope to survive as an artist in the post-CD world. And the subject is Gavin Rossdale and Bush. Here's more from our talk on the subject in New York, specifically why Bush went the crowdfunding route.
Some people may find it a little bit odd that a band that has had such a track record has gone the patron route. But it's not about financing the album, it's about enhancing the fan experience, right?
Yeah, and also the world is so fragmented that what you're trying to do is just tap into all these different areas so people know that it's out there and people know that it's coming. Pledge Music is an incredible company that's solely set up to create excitement and anticipation that we used to get when there was, incredible, it used to be what, I'm going to talk about America. I know that in Canada we did so great and many more stations than there are now. It's shrunk down. I don't know what the numbers are in Canada, so excuse me if I use an American example, but when we began and back in the day, I think there were 1,000 alternative stations, and I think there's something like 200 now.
It shrunk. It has gone
180,
down.
yes. So all the time, you did MTV plays no music. We never were very tight with VH1. I got a bit closer with them to my solo record because it was a bit easier going, so it was more suited to their channel. So when you get down to the brass tacks of it, how do you get it out there? How do you let people know about it?
The number of music magazines dwindle every year. Mm-hmm. Record stores where you could walk in the mall, they're gone.
Yeah.
You said about VH1, MTV not playing music videos anymore. Mm-hmm. Music radio has become extremely fragmented, so we don't have the same.
And thank God for Palladia, Vivo, and YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
Without those guys, it would be floundering. Well, that's the funny thing, that when people, there've been different artists who complain about the streaming thing, which, by the way, I think is absolutely incredible, because in a way it's like, it just creates interest, and having music at your fingertips is something else on your phone. Just like bang, you find you want to reference a song. I think it's so exciting, and it's funny because I have a guy that helps me run my house in London, and I was saying, isn't Uber the greatest thing? Because I love going by Uber. He said, no, it's terrible. The cab drivers are up in arms, and I was like, whoa. When did we sit down and have the tear-jerking conversation about music? And me, what am I supposed to do? I'm all about just things moving forward, and with technology and with the internet, there's so many great things from it that I think that it's amazing. And the Pledge Music thing is just another way, a smart way of just involving people. People want to get involved.
Bush and the Chemicals Between Us from the 1999 album The Science of Things. It came out in October of that year, which was about 4 months after this thing called Napster hit the interwebs. And we all know what happened after that. So back to 2014. What else is Gavin Rossdale doing to adapt to today's music business environment? And what advice does he have for everyone who wants to be an artist?
One last question. You're a mentor on The Voice. What does that mean?
It means an incredibly gracious platform with which to announce that I have a new record. For without doubt, and it's an obvious point, but I'm very grateful to be given the chance to be on there. When you sat in the room with those kids coming in, up and coming singers, you're struck by how much it matters to them, how much hard work they put into their singing, what they've gone through, the sacrifices they've made. Clearly not on a club circuit like we did back in the day, but certainly in a way of like being disciplined about how to sing, because they all sing really good. And I really enjoyed it. It's actually really fun because it's such an unorthodox job, mine. It's like an ancient job. I always say it's like a wandering minstrel. My job in this modern world, it's a job that was from 10,000 years ago, from the beginning of time. Some guy would come in selling medicine and playing songs for people, and it's no difference to what I do. So I respect anyone that puts their heart into something like that, because let's face it, the world is too full of people who want to do us harm and want to put us down. And so for anyone who wants to go into what's called the arts, even if it's just showbiz, to be famous and to make money and to ride on a private jet, I don't care. Most people don't ever get to do that. Most people that go into music, they have a need to communicate and a desire to be creative and artistic, and I should think that should be celebrated in whatever form. And I was also asked, is it weird, these kids, because you come up a different way, and it's a different thing. And there's, by the way, many bands, young bands, who would not go on those, talent shows to be seen. But I don't judge anyone doing that. I think that everyone just does what they can to get ahead. That's it.
It's all in your face. I see you break. It's like the sound of winter. Bleeding love, the silent escape. You got to hang on to yourself. All in your face.
Should you want more to me, that's great. I can help. I have a website called a journalofmusicalthings.com that's updated every single day with music news and music recommendations, along with all kinds of audio and video. It's a pretty cool site, if I do say so myself. And if you really want to keep up to date, there's the daily newsletter. It's free and you never ever get any spam. If you'd rather connect on Facebook, there are a bunch of different accounts attached to me. Just launch a search and you'll find them all, I'm pretty sure. Plus, I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Google+. Or if you'd just rather send me an old-fashioned email, you can do that too. The address is alan@alancross.ca. Just make sure you spell Alan with one L and you're golden. Technical production is by Rob Johnston. Talk to you next time. I'm Alan Cross.
You've been listening to the Ongoing History of New Music podcast with Alan Cross. Subscribe to the podcast through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and everywhere you find your favorite podcasts.